Well, well, it's been a wild ride. It's been a short, what, 7 month, 8 month ride? I think technically it's going to be a full year. And if you're confused to what I'm talking about, you're probably completely out of the loop of live service shutdowns. There's been a lot recently of live service game shutdowns. Hell, there's even been live service game shutdowns that the game didn't even get off the ground before they decided to cut support. Shoutouts to one of the games I was most excited for, Outrage Fight Fest, where it didn't make enough money out of the gate, so they just had to shut it down. Wish they had made an offline mode, just like an offline arcade mode or something, so I wouldn't have to connect to servers. But alas, that wasn't the case, and I don't think they have the resources to go back and fix that. There is hope for those who like Multiversus, though. Now, it's not the hope that we're looking for, but it's the hope that at least we have a game that's not completely going offline. It is losing support, but it may not be completely shutting down. Yes, we're listening to Multiversus music, by the way. Season 5 will serve as the final update for Multiversus, beginning 2, 4, and ending at 5:30. So from 5, I think the game came out on like 5:28 or something, or 5:17. It came out a year ago from its close, so it's a full year. It got the Rumbleverse treatment. Pretty good. After Season 5 ends, players will be able to enjoy the game offline for the foreseeable future. I don't like that wording. I don't like that verbiage. I hate the foreseeable future. I wish you would just say, we're making an offline version, and it should just be out forever. Visit our blog and FAQ for more details. Thank you for the support throughout this journey. Awesome. But sad at the same time, right? I do like, there's an upside to this as a positive. Players will be able to enjoy the game offline for the foreseeable future. I think if a game like this, especially one that's very easily enjoyed with friends, in an offline capacity, or over Parsec, or Steam Remote Play, is... If a game like this... Yes, I don't follow Multiversus, by the way. If a game like this shuts down, I do think that they should make sure that they create an offline version, right? I don't think any fighting game ever, because a platform fighter is a fighting game. Let's just be real. I don't think any fighting game ever should lose support, should die, and just disappear. They're not some online shooter that has an infrastructure that requires that people connect to a server or host peer-to-peer. This doesn't even need to host peer-to-peer. You can just make it offline only, and people can lug setups the same way we used to back in the grassroots Melee days, right? I think, hell, people still technically do it. Outside of Slippy, that's how all offline tournaments are ran. It's people lugging fucking setups and CRTs over to venues. I had some fundamental issues with the game, and I didn't think that they were completely detrimental to the point that the game would die in a year. I just thought maybe they would have to work on them to keep players around. There is things I want to look at, and those two things are, first of all, the Steam charts, which we just saw a second ago. I will refresh this, but surely that's the most recent Steam charts. Yeah, I only pulled this up like 10 minutes ago. So 370 players playing, and its active, and its 24-hour peak was 700. If you look at its contemporaries, one also being free and one being paid, I think the numbers are looking a lot better for Brawlhalla. I don't know about Ravels Vector 2. I'm assuming Ravels Vector 2 has a small player base. It does. It has a smaller but more dedicated player base. As you see here, the player numbers are basically the fucking same. Right? Not across the fact that this is only on PC, but this is on console as well. So this player number is definitely higher when you look at the fact that it's also on Xbox and it's also on PlayStation. But it's probably not too much higher. Okay, 370, right? Compared to 366. Once again, not on console. Can't make it too... I've got to make that very apparent so people don't yell at me. You motherfuckers like yelling. And then here's Brawlhalla, which had a lot more time to cook and has been around for a lot longer and showed and proved to its most dedicated that it is a game that's worth coming back to. As you see, there's a lot of green here. There's a lot of green. And that means that people continue to come back. Yes, there are spikes where like it goes down in popularity and it loses players. But as you see, it's truly, really only ever gained players. It's still technically trending upwards in a meaningful way up until recently. Yikes. What happened here? It's trending back downwards. But in 2023 and 2024, it was still trending upwards for most of the year in 2024. Right? That's, I mean, most of 2023 and 2022. 2024, it looks like the numbers are trending downwards. Maybe they have some things to address. Maybe they need to get back to their core audience and make their community happy. something that Multiversus has only ever done is lose players since it came back online. May 2024 is when it would have came back online. And after the first month, it was late in the month. After the first month, all it ever did was lose players. Now it's down to 500 average players. And currently 400 players. This is not a good look for a game with as much IP brand and as much potential staying power in the market, with a big company behind it like Warner Brothers and all of their IPs. So I want to look at the roster, because I think casually the most impressive or detrimental thing for a game is its roster. Not speaking on balance, not speaking on characters. I mean, not speaking on balance, not speaking on game modes, which also kind of matter. But the roster. This roster could have been a superstar roster, but I think they did a lot to kind of neuter it, right? I think when you look at the vast majority of the characters, they're very cool. But then there's some wacko picks in there that people don't care about. Let me be quite honest with you. I love the black representation, okay? I'm not a DEI guy, but when I get a black character, I'll play them. We have LeBron and Nubia, who first, this is the Space Jam character. This is the Looney Tunes ass Space Jam 2 character. Why did you put LeBron in the game? Like, it's very awkward. Nubia, who the fuck asked for Nubia? Okay, look, once again, preface this. I like black fighting game characters. I like black characters in every video game I can get them in. But who asked for Nubia? She actually feels like an inclusion pick. She doesn't feel like she was put in the game because people were like hampering for this character. You look at the other two characters that were released, Marceline and Raven, and these are characters people have been clamoring for. Another Adventure Time representative and a Teen Titans character, and the best Teen Titans character. Who expected some of these picks, right? Agent Smith over Neo, very strange. Maybe they couldn't get the likeness of Keanu Reeves. A lot of DC heroes, right? But a lot of weird picks, right? Like, let's be quite honest. Who really cares about Arya Stark? So I know two people who like this character and are happy she's in the game. And they're both fucking weirdos. So, what is she doing here? Right? Classics, Marvin the Martian, Taz, Tom and Jerry, and Bugs Bunny. These characters make sense. But a lot of new age characters like Garnet and Steven Universe. Why did they need 2 representation picks for Steven Universe? They didn't. This could have been allocated to a character like Harry Potter, who's also technically a Warner Brothers IP, and we could have gotten Voldemort or Dumbledore or fuck Harry Potter, but I think those 2 characters would be way cooler. There's a lot of weird picks on this roster that kind of make you like scratch your head and go, did they really have to use that character when they could have done anyone else? And the answer is yes, they probably could have done a different character, but they didn't. This is the roster they chose, and it has hits, but it has a lot of misses too. And that's a turnoff for casual players who want to unlock the characters or buy the characters that exist in the game. Now, because the game relies on paid character releases, if you're not putting out hits after hits after hits, if people aren't buying your characters and you're relying on your most dedicated player base to pay for the characters all the time, if that dedicated player base leaves or is scurried away in some way because the design choices of the game, now we'll get into design, then you lose that audience that kept you afloat. Design decisions, design choices. I know a lot of people that had very big audiences, a lot of streamers and fellow content creators, and I should say way larger content creators, as a matter of fact, and former competitive players who liked a lot of the characters in beta and a lot of the way the game played in beta, and a lot of that changed on release. They slowed down the game heavily. They added a dodge meter, not only having a cooldown, but having an actual dodge meter where you only get so many dodges in a certain time frame, and they did a huge amount of balance changes across the roster. Taz and Velma were heavily nerfed from the beta. Heavily nerfed. While characters like Finn, Bugs Bunny, and Harley remained pretty similar. Kind of the same. The changes weren't so abhorrent that the characters were no longer good. This character won Evo, and she didn't get nerfed as hard as Velma did. I just want to let you guys know that that's kind of a no-no. If a character is good enough to win the biggest tournament in the world, or one of the biggest tournaments in the world, and they're nerfed harder than a mid-tier. They're nerfed not as hard, I'm sorry, and a mid-tier is nerfed harder than them. There's something wrong with the design and balance of the game, at least the direction they want to take it. Iron Giant had multiple infinites on launch and had to be removed from the game for a small period of time. So for the friends I knew that played Iron Giant, when the game came back, they didn't have a character and didn't play, didn't talk about the game, didn't show off the game, and didn't give Warner Brothers free promotion by streaming the game. I say the same thing about larger content creators that played Velma, that played Taz, that played characters like, who else got nerfed heavily? I can't think of anyone who was nerfed as heavily as them, right? And then there was the egregious, very brain dead first characters that came out, like Banana Guard, that were by far and away better versions of other characters that existed on the roster, with tools that were so simple and effective that it made it hard to ignore their presence in the metagame. At least for, his first couple weeks. That's one of the things that happens in platform fighters, is when a character first comes out, they seem a lot better than they are, but they get worse over time because people lab and understand them, and then, they lose popularity. Now, if your balance is bad and your roster's a little funny, the only thing you really have left to keep people around is the content, the minute-to-minute gameplay. And is the minute-to-minute gameplay / game modes good enough in something like Multiversus to have kept players around? Long and short of it, no. I think the single-player content was completely mishandled. By Warner Brothers. I was trying to wait by. Was completely mishandled by Warner Brothers, to the point that I don't think that anyone is going to want to play the single-player modes if they're not heavily changed after the game goes to an offline version. Because why is it that you have to play the single player mode with certain types of characters to progress, but yet you don't own those characters? You have to wait for a free week, or you have to grind for them, and the grind for characters is abhorrent. It's extremely long and tedious because they want you to have to pay for them. Pay to play, or spend hours grinding. That was kind of the motto, and that's how a lot of these free-to-play games kind of rope you into playing them. Especially if you can get one or two characters really early, you get a couple characters, and you're like, oh, sweet, unlocking characters actually isn't that bad. And then you go and try to unlock other characters, and it takes forever. That's an issue. That sucks. It makes the game feel more like a chore than it does like an actual video game, and putting that same quality of monetization into the single player was a big no-no. I think that it was a blunder. It kind of killed a lot of people's hopes of playing the single player mode. I touched the single player mode all of 2 times, and I said, this seems stupid. I'm not going to play this because I have better things to do with my time. I don't feel like grinding away in single player and in a multiplayer facet. It wasn't in the cards for me, right? I have other games I play. I do a lot of other things on stream, including yapping about video games. And the game wasn't enjoyable enough in the minute-to-minute gameplay for me to choose to waste my time grinding. Now, one thing I will say is, knowing that this game is going offline, but will have at least offline functionality in some capacity, brings me hope that at least they're understanding that fighting games really shouldn't die. They shouldn't just disappear. This last line brings me hope for the shutdown of a lot of live service games. A game like Brawlhalla, what happens when that shuts down? I know it's very popular, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. But 5-10 years down the road, if another big platform fighter comes out and absolutely destroys its player numbers, what happens to it? Do they just shut it down, or do they make it an offline version only? Do they make it a peer-to-peer version? Do they just shut down the servers? Now, this is the first step in a long line of L's. This is not the first step in a long line of L's for Whataburger. For Warner Brothers. I said Whataburger. Sorry, I'm a Texan. For Warner Brothers, they've had a lot of L's, but this is their first W when it comes to keeping games online. This and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, while they are losing support, they are creating offline versions of their games, which a lot of companies haven't done. Shoutouts to Gearbox Studios and completely just taking Battleborn offline, and you can't even play the single player mode. That sucks. But do I think that this game could have stayed alive if they hadn't mishandled all 3 of the major steps: roster, content, and minute-to-minute gameplay? Yes. But did they mishandle those things, and did it lead to a huge drop in player base and lack of attention for the game? Yes. Hopefully this is a warning or a guide for those who are looking to make a live service fighting game or a live service multiplayer PvP game of what not to do, of what to avoid when it comes to bad decisions for your community and your game as a whole. I'm not happy about the Multiversus Shutdown, even though I don't really like the game that much. I don't want to see a game that other people like just die, just disappear, just stop getting support and stop having service. But at least lessons can be learned from it. I said the same thing about Concord. Anyways, this has been Beanie Thuggish talking on the shutdown of Multiversus in the coming months. How does it make you feel? Are you a longtime Multiversus player? Have you never heard of this game because of bad marketing? Did you play it and you're a disgruntled player and you're kind of willfully ignorant to its existence now? Leave it all in the comment section down below. Make it a conversation. Talk about it. Tell me and others how you feel about Multiversus Shutdown or Multiversus in general. This has been Beanie Thuggish for the YouTubes talking about the Multiversus Shutdown. Signing out and saying peace.